People who have dialed numbers written on bathroom stalls, what's your story? Story 1. I knew a guy that called a number written on a $5 bill. He figured she must be a quality girl because it was a 5 and not a single. She had a great voice on the phone, so they made a date. He played guitar in a popular local band, and there was a hip restaurant next to the club they were playing, so they arranged to meet before the gig. He figured they'd have dinner, and then he'd impress the crap out of her with his playing. He was a truly fine guitarist. So he walked into the restaurant and looked for a girl in a pink dress. There was one, and she was enormous. So he slipped out before she saw him. So during the show, he sees the crowd parts as the girl in the pink dress makes her way to the front where she glares at him during the entire set. Afterward, she screamed at him for standing her up. He felt a little guilty, but he said he'd feel worse if he'd had dinner with her and then dropped her. After all this, his warning was to not call numbers you see on Currency. Or here's an idea, go on the weird date you set up and maybe don't judge by first look. Actually, I was going to say that they might have connected, but I don't know if she would have connected with a guy who would judge her like that. But also, who gets dates by putting their number on a $5 bill? What is any of this? You know what? Whatever, I can't with this one. Story 2. Okay, so it isn't a bathroom stall, but a hilarious story. Back a long time ago, Paris Hilton had her T-Mobile Sidekick hacked and all her contact numbers leaked online. I was contracting some 15 to 16-year-old kid to do a website for me at the time. About 4 to 5 hours before the list went public, this guy building my site hits me up on AIM, yeah, that old, and is like, my buddy just did some crazy hack, he got all these celebs numbers. Bull crap, I said, because at the time this was unheard of. He sent me a text file of about 150 names. The first one that stuck out to me that I knew who they were was Fred Durst. Rang him up, frozen, then said, "Yes, is this Mr. Durst? Yeah, who is this?" I truthfully explained the exact scenario, and my morbid skepticism led me to dial him up. He said something about him going to have to turn his phone off now and actually thanked me for giving him a heads up. After that, I waited a few hours and picked a number at random, someone I didn't recognize or know. Wrong idea. She picked up the phone and said my number was now logged into her phone and the FBI were on the case. Whatever. And she hoped I died. At that moment, I knew the list went public. I logged into some Merc chats, and it was story after story of interactions. I don't like his music, but Fred Durst seemed like a cool cat, and I like to think I gave him a heads up before crap hit the fan. Story 3. Best experience, became regular F-buddies with the guy. He was a bike enthusiast, and we went biking several weekends. Worst experience? Went to meet the guy. After talking and deciding whose wiener would go into whose orifices, was the guy had lied about his stats. I'm talking real chubby, beer belly out to 10 months pregnancy level. Well, I'm here anyway, all revved up, secretly grit my teeth and say, let's do it. He wants it without condom. He claims to be virgin and needs his cherry popped. Seriously, dude, your number's on the frickin' wall of a mall bathroom and you want me to believe you're a virgin? He got offended at my nasty insinuations, told me to go F yourself and lose my number. I ain't gonna wanna see you insert racial slur for brown people here face ever, and I should go back to my own country where I belong and do unspeakable things to goats. When I told him we have no goats in Toronto, the weather is much too cold for them, he got even more mad. Fun times. First, a little shocked you have multiple bathroom stall number stories, like you have a best and worst, which kind of implies there are more that fall in between, but hey, if you've had mostly good experiences, live your life, my friend. And the worst experience guy most definitely sounds like someone deserving of the adjective worst. Do the rest of the world a favor and cross his number out for future people. Story 4. It was written on a piece of paper way back around 10 years ago. It said, call this number if you're struggling with life. I was 13, so I called the number. We never met, but he had a really sweet voice and we talked for about an hour. Gave me great advice about how the world can be cruel to gays like me, but that the first future will get better. We never communicated after that. If I could meet the guy to thank him, even for just a second, I would. Thanks, Mr. Target. That's what he wanted to be called. Story 5. When my friend and I were about 11, there was a public bathroom in the park where we had soccer practice, and outside that public bathroom was a payphone, and on that payphone was scrawled a number and above it the word intercourse. I don't recall ever paying for a call, so maybe it was a 1-800 number. I don't remember. It was a recording of a woman's voice. I remember only the beginning, but I can hear it crystal clear. You want to have fun? Yeah. And then a bunch of feminine giggling. We would hang up when the recording asked for a credit card number to continue the call. I think we were terrified our parents' credit card would somehow get charged and we would get court. Kid logic. We were/are both straight females, but we still called that thing all the time. It was seriously the most risque thing I had ever done up to that point, and also probably for a long time afterwards, sadly. Story 6. I found a business card in a phone booth printed cryptically with, "If you don't call, you'll never know," and a phone number. Since I had time left on the phone card, I called, and now I know. It was a pseudo-religious self-help cult trying to recruit people to seminars at their ranch in, New Mexico, somewhere with promises of finding a new spiritual family. No thanks. The last thing I need is more family. You know what? We've read a few doozies thus far, but this is by far the worst number on this list. I would rather get someone who's an obvious creep than some cult like that. People looking for a quick and dirty roll in the hay are just having fun, but cults like that want to ruin your life or get you jumping on Oprah's couch. Story 7. When I was younger, someone wrote, "For a good time, call," and my number on the playground slide. People would call it a couple times a week, laugh, and then hang up. It started to get annoying, so I went to the playground to cover it up. Someone saw me doing it and called the cops saying I was vandalizing the playground. I had to explain to the cop that I was just removing my number so people would stop calling me. Story 8. I was at a restaurant and they had to give $1 to charity and put your name on this piece of paper we post on our wall. While waiting in the lobby for a friend, I saw one that had a name and a phone number with "Call Me" under it. I figured, what the hell? Why not? Girl answered and I asked if it's X. She says, yes. I explained that I'm in the lobby of the restaurant and her name is on the wall with her phone number. She doesn't believe me despite my best efforts to convince her I don't know who she is. Eventually, she asks me to walk out of the front door of the restaurant, which I obliged, and she says, "Holy crap." Meanwhile, I standing in a parking lot looking around trying to figure out who the hell is looking at me. She asked me to take the paper down and thanked me. Apparently, one of her coworkers told her that he did it and she didn't believe him. They worked in the area and frequented the restaurant. I mean, that is kind of funny, but also low-key semi-doxing that poor lady, so I would say probably don't do that. I was kind of hoping you would walk outside, she would be standing there, and then you end the story with, "And that's how I met my wife." But I suppose this is a little more realistic. Story 9. In high school, I messaged one that was on the back seat of a bus that was going through a town that was a 30-minute drive from my town. I texted, "Who is this? Your number's on the back seat of this bus." They replied, "Greg." I told my classmate about it a week later since his name was also Greg. Sure enough, he holds out his phone with a text message from me in there. Story 10. About 10 years ago, somebody wrote, "Call X for a good time" on the sidewalk. So I saved the number for craps, thinking I would call the number and at least let them know how I got it, but I never did. Just kept the number saved as ? Well, the other day I was on Snapchat and saw ? pop up as suggested friends or whatever, so I added her. She added me back. She's a babe, and I have no idea what to say to her, but I want to tell her how I got her number and not seem weird. Story 11. I used to call the numbers and inform the recipients of where there were not such nice things written with their name and number. They'd always ask what it said. I'd always reply that I wanted to make sure they wanted to know, but they would insist. I would tell them, too, verbatim in my radio announcer voice and listen to the shock emanate from the cell phone. They'd always ask me to mark it out, but I would tell them that I didn't have a penny or Sharpie. Found my sister's number once and couldn't stop laughing. You're doing a kind service for people and having fun with it at the same time, but if you know you're going to do this, you should really start carrying a Sharpie with you to help them out. Don't just be the informant, be the hero they need. You can get one of those tiny Sharpies that fit on your keychain. I believe in you. Story 12. I found a number on the bathroom stall in a bar. When you need a friend, when something great happens and you have no one to tell, when you want to vent, when you want to be spontaneous, when you need help getting home from a drunken stupor, call XXX Rip Ryan. I cried and called to tell her what a great message it was, and we both cried and talked for a few hours. Story 13. There was a flyer posted on a bulletin board at this coffee shop asking for your best Wookiee impersonation. The flyer told you to call and leave a message if they didn't pick up, and the best one would win $25. I figured it was too good to be true, so I called the guy and let him know what it said and where it was. He was wondering why he had gotten so many weird voicemails, but appreciated the heads up. One sec. Now we wait for our $25. Story 14. I was at the bus stop and saw this text. If you're in deep crap, call this number. I called the number because I had like 30 minutes to bus. It was a local small-town taxi company. I told him to come and pick me up. He saved me like 25 minutes of waiting. The guy was cool, and I even gave him a solid tip. I wonder how many times that cab company has gotten calls from people desperate for help or money or something. Hey, can you help? I need some money by this evening or Thick Tony is going to break my legs. Please. What's that? A ride? I'm good. Story 15. I was playing Jenga at a local bar with some friends. All the blocks had people's numbers on it, so we made a rule that you had to text any number you pulled out. First person I texted sent me a pic of a pile of coffee beans labeled "Find the Kanye." There was a tiny Kanye face on a bean in the bottom left corner. Story 16. Never, but I was in this English pub in Tokyo, and the walls were pretty typical of an English pub. West Ham forever, Sarah is an S, and so on. Then one said, "Is anyone interested in joining our baseball team every Sunday at 11 a.m. with his phone number?" He must have thought it was an actual message board. Bless. Story 17. An old-sounding woman answered, offered the best BJ in town. Asked her how much, told me $5. I asked her if it was blueberry or blackberry jam. She called me a dumbbutt. Boysenberry jam, dumbbutt. Those other ones are out of season. I got me a BJ. Story 18. Dialed up a number scratched on a horse feed shed storage door out in Loudoun County, Virginia, and Robert Duvall answered. He cautioned me to not use it again, lest I could deliver him 2 55-pound bags of horse and mule feed. Well, I suggest you get some horse and mule feed and go meet Robert Duvall. That would be awesome. Probably. I don't actually know what kind of guy he is. Maybe he sucks, but I sure hope not. MASH, baby! Story 19. Never dialed one myself, but I answered a call one day from an unrecognized number. He was in a bathroom stall at Arby's that read, "For a long philosophical conversation followed closely by rough intercourse, call," and my phone number. Now, I didn't write it, but I guess word gets around. Story 20. I saw the number read Hunger Games Hotline, so I took a picture of it in case I ever wanted to call it. A year later, I'm on a school field trip coming back from D.C. when I tell my friend we should call this one number. He says yes, we dial it, and we hear robots having intercourse. Story 21. I dialed a number from my college bathroom stalls that said Free BJ. I thought it was going to be the police department or something asinine, but I wanted to do it anyway because you never know, and it was a number for Vector Marketing. Ooh, we have a new scariest number to call. If you don't know, Vector Marketing is the company that gets people to sell Cutco cutlery, and I did that for a while. The reason I say this is the scariest is because it was just like a cult, but they also gave me sharp friggin' knives that I accidentally sliced off the tip of my finger with. I'm not kidding. I will show you the scar. Editor, put up this pic I just took, please. Ignore my old nail polish. That little scar is from 20 friggin' years ago. Thanks a lot, Vector Marketing. Story 22. Not in a bathroom stall, but someone had once written one of my male friend's numbers on a classroom bench. A girl called him. They talked and began dating. Eventually, a guy who had a crush on her beat my friend up, and that is how my friend lost his first girlfriend. Story 23. I saw a number scratched on a table at a bar that said something like, "Call Mike, he's been really mean." So I sent Mike a text telling him to be nicer, and in response he sent me back several angry "who the hell is this" texts over the next few days. He's really mean. Story 24. Got a dial tone. Turned out to be Domino's. Decided, why not? I ordered pizza and went home from the bus station. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.